Mr. Ice Cream Man. Mr. Ice Cream Man. Mr. Ice Cream Man. Nate is the ice cream man.
Yeah, I'm the ice cream man. I do ice creamy things with my ice cream. No, it's not weird. So, we are Clever Kaiju. We are 3 of the 4 founders.
3 of 4.
Yeah, James couldn't make it in. He's probably on the road doing important adulty stuff.
Right.
But no, we have a lot of subjects that we were talking about for the last few years, and a lot of some of them are based on questions. Others are just like, these were things that I remember getting into certain industries that I struggled with. We can't be the only ones. Let's at least talk about them. We talk about these in some of our panels. We have entire like convention lectures about these sort of things. And one of the most commonly asked questions and situations that we talk about is imposter syndrome. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you guys get imposter syndrome?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Well, Gary Bedell and you're
Oh yeah, all the time. I'm probably the worst out of all of you guys.
So for those unfamiliar, like imposter syndrome, I mean, in a nutshell, is essentially like when you worked really hard for an opportunity, maybe like a job position, let's say, for example, and you put all your time and effort into following a dream, and then once you achieve a part of it, instead of feeling like it's an achievement, you feel this overwhelming guilt. Like for some reason, suddenly you don't belong. Yeah. Despite all the work you put into, all the skills you developed, no matter all the things that led you to that place where you're like, cool, I got here. This is what I've wanted. And then you're amongst your peers, you're doing the work that's expected of you, and you just feel like a fraud.
Yeah.
And it's this overwhelming, and it completely destabilizes you. And in our cases, at least in the art industry, that can be really detrimental to your workload, like to your output. If you're constantly feeling like, I don't actually belong here, I didn't actually think that I would get here, I must have done something to fool these people into thinking that I'm capable. Mm-hmm. And it's only a matter of time before they see me as a fraud.
That's a great summary. Yeah.
Well, that's every day of my life. So let's talk about.
Oh, Nate.
Well, and it's different industries, and imposter syndrome isn't just with just art and creative,
Yeah.
It's difficult because you, as an artist, you're trying to earn your way into a certain industry or a certain job or a certain group of peers, like for example, Clever Kaiju, where you feel like, man, that's where I want to be. That's where I belong. And, mental picture from the outside looking in, you're like, man, that would be ideal. And I want to kind of pick apart why it is you feel, you tend to feel that way. Why you feel guilty. Like, oh crap, I don't belong here. So Gary, you've done you've had a handful of industries. You've done, graphic design, you've done illustration, you've done production work, you've done video game design. Yeah. Like there's really nothing that you're like, oh, that looks cool, I could do that, and you throw and you apply. And there's a certain air of confidence with you, like that people generally feel when they talk to you, like when they come up to you at conventions or whatever, or when they come to your lectures. And a lot of that just comes from experience. Yeah. But are you faking it?
Well, it's funny, not necessarily, but it's weird because sometimes there's things that go on behind the scenes, or something doesn't go through, and you're the only person that knows about it,
yeah, that's a good point.
These bunches of people out here, they don't know about that, but you do, and so you're like, oh man, I failed at this. I don't want to teach these people how to fail. Just because you did that one thing, and it'll stick with you. Because I also have another horrible habit that comes with imposter syndrome, and that's perfectionism. If you look at a lot of my work, I always try to push stuff to the limit, detail wise or line work wise or whatever. It's just it's a habit that I love and hate at the same time. It kind of comes from imposter syndrome, because it's like, oh well, this might not be good enough for this, or I picture someone like Jim Lee or someone looking at the work, or in my imaginary feedback in my brain, which is totally fucking wrong. You know,
Yeah.
you can censor that, but
No,
it's totally wrong.
This is real.
You know, but it is just weird how we trick ourselves. Like we ourselves trick ourselves,
Yeah.
and it's weird that we can get ourselves to the things that we can get ourselves to believe, even though things on the outside look one way. Because I get a lot of people asking me questions, or they're like, I want you to look at my work and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, hell, maybe you should be looking at my work.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, man, it creeps in, it creeps out. You know.
So when you get these opportunities, like, hey, I saw this thing you did, or I've been watching your work, and even if you've been doing it for a while, and somebody's like, I think you'd be perfect for this, or you apply for something, and they're like, yeah, absolutely, like you're a shoo-in, and then you're like, cool, and then you sit down. Do you feel like maybe everything that they see, that they, great, now they expect that all the time, and that was a complete fluke. That was luck. I had no idea what I was doing when I did that. Now this is like this is apparently I have to do this all the time now, and I didn't know how I did it the first time.
That actually happened when I got the gig with Rivers of London, Chaosium.
Oh, really?
Cthulhu. And I was like, well, I asked them, I said, what made you like want to select me to do work? Just curious. And they're like, oh, we just really like your architecture. And that was just the one thing that I thought I was still trying to work on at the time. And I was just like, really? I was like, okay, cool, and so I just went with it. And so I just started trying to like recreate that feeling from that piece that they had, and trying to do that over and over again with them.
And if you don't, then
right,
they're going to be like, everything you do has to be like a huge step forward and mind blowing every single time. Right. And if it's not, then it's like, this guy's a fraud.
Right.
Who hired this guy?
Right, it's fake.
He's just a really lucky asshole. Like,
yeah, big fat phony.
Have you had an imposter syndrome and as a creator? Because I mean, you do a lot of stuff yourself. Like you built your empire on a lot of original work, but I mean you throw yourself into you take on a lot of different jobs and in Kaiju. And I mean, I'd like to think that, we're supportive enough and we don't make you feel like don't mess up, but like, sure. your day job is stressful. And I mean, hell, you work with people on this topic often, I bet. So yeah, like what are your experiences with?
Man, I don't know. This topic has always made me feel like an imposter because I'm like, what? I don't know what I would say. Like I know that I have had perfectionism. I've had anxiety, things that, and I guess you could say it's imposter syndrome. I just haven't put the pieces together for myself, to say, oh, that's definitely what that feeling is. But feeling I've got to be, perfect, better than I need to be. Like putting extra pressure on myself, working extra hours, in ways that it doesn't actually improve your output or the quality of your work when you're perfectionistic, when you're stressed and anxious. And I've done it. I've done that before, and I'm trying to learn not to. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's imposter syndrome, but
sure.
But it's definitely anxiety and perfectionism and just some traits that some people struggle with more than others that can get us in a hole of not functioning well. Not our thoughts and our actions are not geared towards productive action as clearly because we're caught in our head or something. So,
right. Yeah.
But yeah, lately I haven't had much of it. I think I've gotten over a lot of it just because after 10 plus years doing comics and stuff, it's just like, this is just who I am. This is what I do. Mm-hmm. I make sure to always be doing something art wise every week. Mm-hmm. So I'm able to look back and go, no, I've got a record here that I belong in the room, Yeah. And I don't care as much about what people think, I guess.
Sure.
But it's very isolating still, like to make your own comics. I don't have an editor. I don't have the publisher. I don't have anyone patting me on the back or anything. Right.
Right.
So it's isolating, and that's kind of like imposter syndrome, because it's like, am I doing good? Am I doing the right thing? And you'll question yourself a lot.
Yeah, in my case, I spent so many years like earning my way in, having a mental image of what I thought was like, that's where I belong, that's what I want to do, that's what I want to be. And I worked, blue collar factory job for so many years, and then an opportunity came for me to like show, like, actually I'm an artist too. And so that whole process, it was really the only time I went through an interview process, and I got the job, but I have no degree. I learned everything on my own out of depression. Like I could have gone to alcohol or worked my way out of it. And I chose to just learn a bunch of skills that I felt were useful, like people like that. I guess I could do that, and I just created this arsenal of tools. And here I am sitting in front of, like the company I've worked for like 10, 12 years. Like I just got off the plant floor. I was like, it was like 100 degrees. I had to like horse bath in the bathroom just to get all the sweat off of me, change my shirt to a button-up shirt, and then like walk into this office with fancy people and sit down and try and convince them that I'm a talented graphic design artist for their company. And it worked.
Well, there was a lot stacked against you in that.
And so it's like, cool. I should have felt accomplished. I should have felt like that's granted, I wasn't really allowed to be proud of myself or talk about it, because people in the plant, they would get bitter, and they did when they saw one of their own get out, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But when I was there, I was still wired like a plant grunt. You couldn't, like, I was out of it. Physically, I was out of it. I had nicer clothes. I'm sitting at a desk. I'm sipping coffee and donuts, being taken out to lunch, with vendors and talking and going back and forth. And they're like, look, we know you don't have a degree, but we'll help you finish it if you want. So I was in school, they were paying for my degree up to that point. Still didn't get it, by the way. They pulled the plug for other reasons, not because of... But I will say that the entire time I couldn't get out of my own head that like I should feel proud of myself. I got out. And here I am thinking, like, here I am amongst other peers that I respect in a completely different scene that I've never seen before, that I've only imagined was like. And I'm like, I don't belong here. And it's only a matter of time before they see that I'm a fraud. And that I internalized that so much so that it became external. Like, I think there's definitely like my hesitancy to take the reins and actually take control of the new situation I was in and make the best of it. I think I was holding myself back. And it's, like you said, your work, you don't get better by being, your hesitancy doesn't make you better. It's just, you're really just guarding yourself for that one time where you're like, wait a minute, I thought you were good at this. And you're just like, well, I thought I made it pretty clear that it was weird that I was here to begin with. Like, even though that conversation might not ever happen. So it can backfire, and it's something that holds people back a lot. I think being in Clever Kaiju, especially where we're at now, has given me, like, as a tattoo artist, especially, like I was invited in. That helped. That's not a common thing with tattooing, is to be like, hey, you're really talented. I think you could be really good at this. I'll kind of show you the ropes. And yeah, I had to learn a lot of it on my own, but I already had that focus and that tenacity from other things I've done. So it wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, in hindsight, there's a lot that I want to do better as a mentor myself, one day. But overall, you're sitting in a room with a bunch of seasoned peers in a field, and you're like the guy that was just brought in on a whim. And, you feel like you're set up for failure, even though your work has gained you that access, like your work and your efforts, and you have that respect. And it's like, it's still something I struggle with today. I'm co-owner of a tattoo studio. I'm co-founder of an art education platform that's growing, both of which are growing and going great. If it wasn't for like, well, who's going to tell me in the tattoo area, for example, who's going to tell me that I'm just a tattooer and not an artist? Well, now I have at least, may I direct you to my entire platform that I helped build from the ground up and, focused on art and education. You tell me if I'm not an artist. And then, or if I don't have the chops to do pretty much anything that I can jump into. So there is that confidence amongst your peers. At first, they may seem intimidating because they're going to say I don't belong here, But then over time, you're going to see, and I hope a lot of artists in Clever Kaiju feel like, no, I'm amongst people that are just like me.
Yeah.
And we're all struggling with it. And it doesn't really go away. And I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But that's probably best.
You just got to
within reason.
You got to figure out how to cope with it. That's
Right.
like the big thing.
So that's kind of what I guess the follow up is, you know, how do you cope with it? Like how, when you find yourself, is it different every situation, or is there just this general like anxiety of?
I think it varies. It's different from time to time, and then there's similar cases that relate to each other, and then there's times where it feels different, but it's all the same feeling. It's all that feeling of imposter syndrome. But how I cope with it, I don't know. I'm joking.
Do you feel that maybe it's instead that there's that transition where you feel that feeling of intimidation of like your peer next to you or the people that you look up to? Is there a transition where that intimidation turns into inspiration? And is it more of like once you trust your peers and your peers trust you, like you're a little more open to be like, look, I don't really know much about this, but I think I've established myself well enough to know that I can learn it if you explain it to me.
Yeah.
And that makes a world of difference. Suddenly you're collaborating instead of like proving yourself. Like,
right.
No, I belong here. And I was like, no, you do. It's just something you haven't dealt with before. So
I think once you realize that you need to just kind of focus, even though, you know, we have CK, we have Clever Kaiju. At the end of the day, you have to focus on yourself when it comes to like your skill level and how you present things, how you execute things artistically.
mm-hmm.
You know, you got to focus on like yourself, because they always say, you know, you can't help others unless you help yourself. So
yeah,
you definitely focus on yourself, compare yourself to your older self. Kind of thing. And I even need to be taking my own advice, because sometimes I even forget that, you know, because, you know, art is a competitive business. I'm not going to sit here and lie to everybody. It's a fucking competitive business, and it can get heavy sometimes. And, you know, I'm still trying to find a way to get into doing Magic the Gathering, but even though I heard that there's a lot that's been going on there, which I won't get into, but you know, I still feel in my personal career, I still feel like there's like this one little barrier that I'm still trying to push through to get, and I know it sounds kind of bad saying I want to get into like the mainstream.
No, that's not bad at all.
You know, but I really want to do that. Like I would love to do like a run on the X-Men. I would love that. Like,
yeah.
That
but if you got there, would you be like, oh, I'm on X-Men? Or would you be like, oh, shit?
Well, yeah, both actually. I'd be like, "Oh fuck, when did I get here?"
Yeah.
Like they actually have me draw X-Men. Holy crap!
Yeah,
but you know, you have to look at other artists that are doing those books and doing Marvel projects. You know, there's guys that are working for Marvel that are phenomenal.
And you have to trust that they too were in that same exact situation.
Exactly.
And granted, they've probably been doing it for so many years, they forgot what that feeling was like. But you're always going to have people who are like, no, buddy, I'm with you.
But there's also artists who aren't that great, aren't that impressive. I've seen work in this last issue of previews, the Marvel preview book, the free ones they give you at the comic store.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of art in there that was kind of just subpar. And I was just like, how is this person getting work at Marvel and I'm not? You know,
sure.
Like,
that bitterness sets in,
and then you go to your stuff, and then you just try to start working harder, start adding more details.
Right. You assume I'm just not good enough. I just need to be better.
Right.
And maybe I've been good enough for a while. Maybe there's something else I'm missing.
And that's a vicious trap too.
Right.
Because that's one that I still fall for, and I've been a professional artist for 20 years now.
Right.
So,
and I don't mean to and I say this not to cut anybody down whose skills are, but the thing is it, and especially even in the tattoo industry, there are people who are very successful and they do very well. Mm-hmm. But what I've learned about myself is for me personally, how I deal with imposter syndrome is that I realize that it's a me issue.
Yeah.
That it's not necessarily like, okay, maybe
it's not a world issue.
Yeah. Maybe I've been good enough for a long time. I just haven't been focused on other things that are important, like that marketing is a big deal. Talking about myself,
Yeah.
I always thought that a talented artist would be able to just make art, put it out there in the world, and they throw themselves at it. You know, I throw my art chum in the ocean and the sharks just come after it. But that's not how it works. Yeah, there's a lot of life out there.
But it used to be like that, like in the like late 90s, mid to late 90s, early 2000s, though.
Yeah.
Like that didn't just
The
come
internet
out of that didn't come out of your imagination. That's literally how it was back then.
But as you know, as it grows, you know, that ocean is it's teeming with life and fish to bite. But you know, just sitting out there in the middle of nowhere, throwing it out there and expecting a bite, you're
right.
It's foolish.
Yeah.
You know, you got to know where those fish gather, and you got to figure out what it is they want, and it's hard. So it's like, you know, Neil Gaiman himself had said that really, you know, it's a matter of like there's like three pieces. If you do amazing work, you're easy to work with, and you meet deadlines, you know, you're not going to have a hard time getting a job. Heck, he says if you get 2 out of 3, you're probably still going to be just fine.
Yeah.
And it's like if you put all your focus into just being incredibly talented, thinking that your work is going to speak for you, it works for some people.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to talk about yourself or market yourself or put yourself in positions to talk about your art or even celebrate other people's art and put yourself and plant that seed, like you're really shortchanging yourself. And I remember thinking that moment where I'm just like, okay, maybe I've been good enough at what I do for a while. Maybe I've been focusing too much on the wrong thing. And you know, everybody, you know, that overnight success thing, most people take 15 years to become an overnight success. You just don't see it until suddenly they're blown up. So it's one of those things that success doesn't really make you success or hitting these achievements don't make you feel less or more of an artist. And it doesn't make you feel any less of an achievement with your goals. For me, it always came down to me. Like, I was shooting for goals because I was like, I had a mental image of, oh yeah, if I was sitting at a desk doing art or doing video game design or doing animation, I had a mental picture from the outside looking in, like I was a camera looking at myself, like working on stuff. And I was like, that image is me, like happy and content. Like I found myself, this is who I am. Until I found myself later on doing it. And I realized like, why do I not feel like I thought I'd feel?
Yeah.
Is it because I don't want it? Or is it because I'm still stuck in my mind that like it was a fluke that I got here to begin with? And it's like, that's a me thing. But like when you internalize things and you I mean, because you have peers, you have people that you look and you've actually built a community up in Kaiju itself. Like, are there any, and you don't call them out by name, but do you find yourself like kind of lecturing or talking to people with your YouTube channel? Or in Clever Kaiju, when you lead these discussions and lead these teams, do you feel like, you know, some of these artists that you're talking to are like, you had no business listening to me. Like you should be, or is it a pretty open discussion? Like, is it?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't feel that way. I don't think, I think that I'm aware that I have too much imposter syndrome in that moment, that they're there because they're wanting me to lead. They're wanting me to communicate. And then if I'm like, I don't know, what do you guys think? Like, really wishy-washy language. And it's like, no, I should go all in. Like I should go all in and participate and lead if that's the case. If it's like kind of a leadership position or something that I would have imposter syndrome about, go all in, you know? And I try to do that, but it is something I continue to learn. Like every year, every time I do it, I'm like, oh, I was hesitating. I wasn't going all in. Not
I see.
quite,
So you've identified that it's a you thing, and you took the reins early. Well, good for you.
Well, I'm still working.
I'm not jealous
of
that.
I still work on doing it. No,
what am I doing here?
I still have to work on it.
And I know that, you know, James isn't here, so I don't want to like, you know, speak on his behalf too much. But I do know that, you know, James, who's been, you know, who's had the work beside you in video game design, you know, graphic design, illustration. He's a teacher at MSU for visual art and animation. The guy is an incredible has an incredible resume.
He's literally the reason why I can paint faster in Photoshop.
I mean, he teaches teaches it at a university.
Yeah.
And yet in Kaiju, we're like, hey man, like share what you know.
Yeah.
And here's a camera, here's a microphone, go. He's like, I don't think I'm the right choice for that.
Yeah,
and it's like, you know, oh, I get it because you know, conflict of interest with all your other, because it's and we're not going to force him. We're not going to push it into like, it's just one of those things that all we can do is encourage that the fact that like, hey, you're, and there's times where he's just like, I don't even know why I bothered coming in. Like, I don't even know what you guys need me for. And I'm like, you're here. That's enough.
Yeah.
Like, and that's, we don't want to expect too much of him, but we know that there's a lot that he has to offer. And it's like, we can't slap that out of him. You know what I mean? That's, that's not going to do him any good. So it's like, it just takes time. And for some people, being in a group long enough with peers that you look up to, suddenly they're not competition. They're not investigators looking for the imposter.
Yeah.
They're peers that have probably been through it with you, just like you did. And suddenly that competition becomes inspiration.
Yeah.
And that you don't have to compromise it anymore. And you just become okay with like, well, this is what I do. This is who I am. And if you reach that point where you can identify that, that's a huge step.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a lot of that, I think for me, imposter syndrome comes from the fact that I don't know what I am. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So I do everything thinking that I'm going to be like, that's it. That's my golden ticket.
Yeah.
And then realize, oh, wait, no, that's just yet another thing that I'm going to build towards something bigger. But, and that's part of the reason why Kaiju happens is because I might die before I figure it out. But at least if I can explain my process and the story, maybe somebody else will get a leg up.
Yeah.
So they don't have to go through lose all of their 20s and mid 30s.
Yeah.
In horrible depression.
Or trying to
find themselves.
Yeah, trying to search for how to get into this, this, and this. I mean,
right.
Yeah, Clever Kaiju was selfishly created for our younger selves. Like, what would we have wanted, if we were in our 20s, late teens kind of thing.
Yeah. So did we cover everything? Probably a little bit more than expected?
Yeah. It's a tough topic. It's
but this is obviously going to be a conversation that we keep having. So when you see this, we'll have this posted in the Discord for sure. If you want to share your experiences with imposter syndrome, if you're going through it now, just understand that, humility is fine. Being humble is awesome. But there comes a point where if you kick yourself too hard and you put yourself down too much, people are going to start to believe it.
Yep.
Even if it's false, even if it's wrong. So, you might as well just take the reins.
What is saying? If you saying you can or you can't, either way, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, but one more thing before we go. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who came to the sketchbook tour. That was super fun. We're going to do it again. Just be on the lookout for our next date.
Woo! Thank you guys. It was awesome. Okay, bye.
Awesome.